Hi, hello everyone, welcome. Mr. Alja Smart here. Okay, so in 1956, when the then governor of Bengal asked the then Prime Minister of England, Clement Attlee, that why did the Britishers have to leave India? Because after 1942, there were no major protests in India. So the British could have continued their term, but they left in 1947. So that was the question asked by the Bengal governor. So the answer which Clement Attlee gave was stunning, totally stunning. He said that the movement which was led by Mahatma Gandhi did not have any major impact on us, but the movements led by Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and his army had a very huge impact on us. Okay, so what did Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose do that affected the British army so much? Okay, so let's see a short history about Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. He was born in a very affluent family. His father was working in the government and he had food 3 times a day, whereas most of the country at that time was suffering from a famine. They did not have enough food because most of the food was exported to Britain. Okay, and Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose was able to study in a very good school, and this incident made him leave the school. Means he was thrown out of the school. He slapped a British teacher, so he was thrown out of the school. Then his father wanted him to appear for the Indian Civil Services examination, which is really hard that even great brains can flunk the test. So Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, within 6 months, finished the test. He passed it, and he started working in London. But after seeing his country, his motherland suffering, seeing his motherland cry, he came back to India to help his country gain freedom. So he joined the Indian National Congress, and step by step he started growing in Indian National Congress because he had a very charismatic character and he had a very good ability to speak. So he started growing, and in 1938 he became the president of the Indian National Congress but had to resign from the post in 1939 because of the different ideologies. He believed in violence, whereas Mahatma Gandhi believed in non-violence. So he had to leave Indian National Congress. So after that, he was a lone wolf. He wandered around the country. That's the time when he observed that there were only 40,000 British soldiers in India, whereas nearly 2.5 lakh people, the Indian soldiers, were of Indians. They were Indians. Of the British army, 2.5 lakh people were Indians. So what Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose's idea was that if he makes this 2.5 lakh soldiers revolt, the Britishers will have to murder the country. So what that time, this was one of his observation. Whereas he had another observation. That was the time when World War II was happening. He saw that the British ruling the colonial territory, they were in the verge of losing their own territory, their own country to the Germans. So what Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose thought was that the three major enemies of Great Britain were Russia, Germany, and Japan. So what he did was he disguised as a Pathan. He went to Afghanistan. From Afghanistan, he goes to Russia and asked the Russians for support, whereas the Russians denied it. So after that, he goes and meets Hitler, the Nazi Germany, and tries to gain their support. But seeing Hitler in his position, felt that Hitler needs most of his soldiers and that he has to win the war. So Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose even leaves Hitler away. So then he goes to Japan. So Japan army at that time conquers Singapore, where nearly 40,000 soldiers were Indians and only 24,000 were Britishers. So what Japanese did was that to attack India, why should we send our soldiers? So they made the commander of the 40,000 Indian soldiers Captain Mohan Singh, and decided that he will be the one who will be attacking India. So at that time, what happens is that all the 40,000 soldiers had lost all hopes because they thought they were being used as scapegoats. That's the time when Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose comes into action. He comes, he starts motivating the soldiers, he starts having food with them, he starts sleeping with them, and the soldiers get motivated. At that time was the one when he found three capable commanders, very good commanders. They were Prem Kumar Sehgal, Shah Nawaz Khan, and Gurbaksh Singh Dhillon. These three were very capable commanders because they led the Indian National Army, or the Asadin Force, the 40,000 soldiers army, from Myanmar, no, from Singapore to Myanmar to Imphal, from Kohima to Imphal. So that's the time in Imphal where the Indian National Army faces the Indian British Army, but the British Army outsmarted the Indian National Army, means there were more soldiers. So most of the Indian National Army soldiers were killed, whereas the rest were taken as prisoners. So now what happens is that this happens, and most of the Indians thought that the 40,000 soldiers were not there to help India gain its freedom, but they were sent by Japanese to invade India because Britishers were very intelligent. They censored the media by telling that the 40,000 soldiers were Japanese troops who wanted to attack India, but they didn't tell they were Indians who were fighting for the Indian freedom. So now what happens is that this particular time is the one when the news started spreading. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose died in an aircraft crash. So what happens is that the full country was mourning, whereas the Britishers wanted to show Indians that if anyone stood against the British, what will happen to them. So the three commanders, Sehgal, Shah Nawaz Khan, and Gurpak Singh Dhillon, they were had to have an open trial in Delhi. So what happens is that the full country starts getting to know that the 40,000 soldiers were to support India. So 2.5 lakh soldiers, the navy, the army, and everyone started revolting against the British. It was the naval mutiny and extra. So the full country started being in a revolt, whereas the British army did not have any option but had to murder the country. So what Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose taught had become true, because after getting to know that 40,000 soldiers were to help them, and the Indian National Army fell by it, and they started revolting against the British leaders. So the British had no choice, but they had to leave India. So Clement Attlee said that by 1948, all the British soldiers would have left India. So more than Mahatma Gandhi's work, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose's work had impacted the freedom movement a lot. So guys, if you most of us wouldn't have known about this because we don't talk about this in our textbook. It's a forgotten part. So if everyone has to know it, please share it with anyone you can, because we should not forget about Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and his great work for the Indian Army. Thank you.